bases dropped on a new round of soccer down here until well past Wednesday. It'll be a no dilly, no dally zone because there's a lot to talk about. We're going to take our time this morning because there's a lot of details that we have to hash through, and we want to make sure that all the information's out there. When Nick in our production chat basically says something is the largest scandal since Calciopoli, that's the lead. So when we get through opening kickoff, we'll get into what's going on with Sandro Tonali, the news that came out this morning before the show started. We'll get into all of that. That's probably where we're going to spend majority of hour number one. Hour number two, if the busiest man in the Northeast can hang out with us at 10 o'clock, we'll see Dylan Butler because there is an update on Dylan Butler Estates and the NYCFC Stadium project. We'll get into Dylan with that. We'll get into Major League Soccer, getting into the final weekend of the regular season. We'll discuss that with Dylan if he can join us at 10 o'clock. Bart Keeler, 10:30. The U.S. had no problems last night with Ghana, but that's not the only thing to talk about. It is the men's national team. It is the youth national team who had a late-night match against Japan, if memory serves. Caleb Wiley got the start for the youth national team last night. You look at that Y&T roster last night, that was a strong bunch. So we'll get into that. And also the retirement of one Michael Bradley. And we'll get into context with that. And, I know some of you might boo. So get it out of your system. So that's the traffic for today. And that is what we're staring at when it comes to the show. So opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And there is your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch, covering up the other QR code for hour number two right there. And once again, for our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com, don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest it into the youth game, youth initiatives from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. There. I got to cover up things for hours and things like that. So we'll get into all of that. Morning four card. Morning, Abby. So opening kickoff, we got a couple of things before we get into what's going on in Italy. So our friends at The Score, full disclosure, worked with them when they did television back, not in quite the days of black and white TV, but just Barcelona update. From 45 minutes ago from our friends at Agence France Presse, Barcelona president Joan Laporta has been charged as part of the investigation into alleged bribes paid to referees, according to a Spanish court. The club itself and two of its former presidents, Bartomeu and Sandro Rosell, as well as the former head of Spain's referee body, Jose Maria Enriquez Negreda, and his son have already been charged. Laporta has been charged in relation to his first spell as president of Barcelona from 2003 to 2010. In his report published on Wednesday, the judge leading the investigation said, in his opinion, Laporta could not benefit from the statute of limitations because of the seriousness of the accusations. Negreda allegedly earned over €7 million, $7.5 million from Barcelona between 2001 and 2018 through companies supposedly producing refereeing reports for the club. Barcelona have been fighting off accusations for months, deny any wrongdoing. So that's keeping an eye on Barcelona. Morning Shooter, morning four card, morning Abby. Also on the board this morning from our friends at Talk Sport in England. And it has to do with Everton. And we've been following the Everton takeover idea for quite some time. So our friends at Talk Sport, and there was also an article that came out on Yahoo Sports on Monday, and we'll reference that really quickly too. And this is the wording from Talk Sport. Debt-laden Everton's £550 million takeover is in danger of falling through over doubts about how prospective new owners 777 Partners are financing the deal. The American-based company are believed to have missed a deadline set by the Financial Conduct Authority to provide up-to-date financial records. A source familiar with the sale process told TalkSport, without the correct financial information, it's hard to work out where the money is coming from. I'd imagine that that is the basis of the FCA issue. Without approval from the FCA, 777 Partners who've declined to comment, of course they're not going to comment, will not pass the Premier League's recently beefed up owners and directors test. Once again, wording from TalkSport. It is a nightmare scenario for Everton, who are already being investigated for FFP breaches that could lead to a potential points deduction and are in the process of building the new stadium at Bramley Moor Dock. They had agreed to the £550 million deal to buy the Toffees after reaching an agreement with Farhad Moshiri. Unless those documents are provided, the government-backed regulator will not approve the sale. 777, founded in 2015, is an American private investment company that has a varied portfolio of investments from sports teams to insurance and entertainment and aviation, worth about £8 billion, already have stakes in 7 other football clubs, the most notable being Sevilla, Genoa, Standard Liège, Red Star, CR Vasco da Gama in Brazil, Hertha Berlin, and Melbourne Victory are also on the books for 777. Co-founder Josh Wander will also be subject to the Premier League owners and directors test, having been arrested in 2003 for cocaine trafficking when he was a student at the University of Florida. So that's part of it. Now, back on Monday, our friends at Yahoo Sports, Farhad Moshiri delivered a takeover verdict involving 777. He insists they are the right people to take the club forward. Agreed to a deal to purchase Moshiri's 94.1% in an open letter to fans before last Saturday's victory over Bournemouth. Co-founder Josh Wander insists 777 were confident of the deal going through and being given approval without issues. Obviously, Evertonians are somewhat skeptical. Supporters of Standard Liège, Hertha Berlin, and Vasco da Gama have protested against their ownership. Vasco recently hit with a FIFA transfer ban for late payments. Moshiri believes 777 are the right people to take over. The quote, the more time I've spent with the 777 team, the more confidence increases. We've found the right people to take the club forward in the modern era. They are highly professional and deliver exactly when they say they will. Look forward to them achieving all their regulatory approvals and proceeding to the completion on the timetable that we've set. And our friends at Yosemar Football, Paul Brown and Philip Auclair, 777 accused in court of predatory conduct for targeting brain-damaged former American football players making concussion claims against the NFL. The scheme, which Yosemar has been told was the brainchild of managing partner Josh Wander, involved advancing money to victims in return for a percentage of a future settlement. But contracts signed by 777 companies with claimants were subsequently voided in 2017 by a judge who ruled they broke strict regulations governing the officials' NFL concussion settlement amid concerns expressed by lawyers that could lead to retired players being ripped off. And some 777 were uncomfortable with the idea because of the risk that claimants may not be mentally able to make an informed decision, with former employee Gary Chodes counseling strongly against the scheme. Scheme went ahead, and there's a quote from Chodes, and I'll post the article. This will be your required requested reading of the day. 777 took particular interest in it and put together a team to build something around the NFL settlement and do a lot of business. I thought it would be challenging and unsuccessful. A 777 company called Justice Funds was one of several third-party lenders collectively accused by lawyers of using coercive scare tactics to persuade concussion victims to, quote, potentially forfeit portions of their monetary awards in return for help they didn't need in submitting a claim, and of spreading false and misleading information about the settlement process, according to court documents that were seen by Yosemar. In one case, a claimant was charged $4,400 by Justice Funds for help with the claim. Claimant received $25,000, but as a part of his funding agreement, he was due to owe them over $37,000 after just 1 year, according to court records. Yosemar understands Wander was on the board of Justice Funds at the time. Another 777-owned company, NFL Case Consulting, LLC, was accused in court documents of making misrepresentations to members through emails, direct mail, and telephone calls, and indirectly through internet advertising. The company later changed its name. Yosemar understands the name was changed following a request from the NFL, which is well known for fiercely protecting their trademarks, especially when you go wandering around with the name of NFL Case Consulting. People are thinking that you're dealing directly with the National Football League. Court heard that Case Strategies charged clients 10 to 15% of potential future monetary awards, and that in addition, they referred their clients to specific law firms for another percentage fee and stood to make millions of dollars from what is basically little effort. And so it goes into the Pennsylvania case and more about NFL case consulting from 777. So this will be your required reading of the day involving what is going on with one of the groups involved with Everton. So that's your required reading of the day. Yeah, Shooter, exactly. Yep. Yeah, these guys are super reliable. So that is your something of an opening kickoff this morning. This is going to be a heavy news day, and because there is a lot to get into, and that is opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee. KickoffCoffeeCO.com. Once again, there's your QR code for those who are watching on all of our social medias, on the Facebook, on the Twitch, and on the 280-character app. And don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10% reinvested into the youth game and youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and KickoffCoffeeCO.com. All right, so let me take my hand down and quickly take that out. All right, so here we go. All right. So here's where we are. Like I said, when Nick in our pre-show production chain basically says that there is a scandal that is worse than Calciopoli, that turns into the lead story. And what has happened this morning, and bam, that's another thing, A-League flipping the finals. I had that on my list of news. We have that on the list of news stuff into the Unite round. So this morning, as of about 40 minutes before the show started, this came out from our friends at Sky. Sandro Tonali faces a lengthy ban from football after admitting to betting on AC Milan matches while a player at the club, according to Sky. Sky's story: Tonali yesterday admitted to making bets on AC Milan to win games in a hearing at the Italian Federation. The Newcastle footballer, Newcastle midfielder, was one of the players named in an Italian football betting probe last week. And like I said, we're going to go backward before we can and go forward at the same time. So we're going to look at the news, the lead up, and what's been going on. And Ricky, that's that's part of it. So this is part of the stuff that we will be processing here as we talk about it. An Italian football Newcastle midfielder, one of the players named in an Italian football betting probe last week. Sky understands Newcastle are shocked and surprised at the revelations. Tonali faces a lengthy ban from football after admitting to betting on AC Milan matches while a player at the club, according to Sky Italia. Admitted on Tuesday making bets on Milan to win matches in a hearing at the Italian Federation in Turin. Newcastle right now making no comment. And if Dylan joins us in 40 minutes, we'll probably get his comment on the whole thing. Tonali, one of the players named in an Italian football betting probe last week, withdrawn from the senior men's squad for last night's defeat to England. Remember, he and another player were sent home. It's like, we don't want you here. You need to leave. Sky understands that at his hearing on Tuesday, he admitted to betting on matches, both in which he played and didn't play, for Milan to win. According to FIFA Code 26, conduct such as this can see players face up to a 3-year ban from worldwide football. Tonali is likely to face a lesser but still lengthy ban for his help with the investigation and for admitting his guilt. So basically, yeah, I stepped forward. Yeah, I did it. So I get less than the 3 years max. On Tuesday, Juve midfielder Nicola Fagioli, who was the first player named in the probe, was served a 7-month ban for betting on football. He self-reported. Tonali did not. And as I wanted to discuss this whole thing, let me bring Nick in. And Nick, I'm going through the basics here with what happened this morning, and I want to have you here as we analyze and go forward in all of this because of what you said in our production thread. That's why I wanted to lead with this and take as much time with this as possible so we get everything laid out, we don't rush, and we give it the context that it deserves. Fajoli had a 5 month had 5 months of a 1 year ban suspended, fined €12,500, basically a little under 11,000 pounds. While he agreed to a therapy plan of at least 6 months to tackle his gambling problem, the FIGC announced. In a statement on the website, the governing body said the 22-year-old violated the rule that prohibits betting on football events organized by FIGC, UEFA, and FIFA. Tonali, who signed for Newcastle for £55 million from Milan in the summer, expected back in Newcastle on Wednesday. Sidebar, I don't know how he plays. Tuesday, Tonali's agent admitted the player had a gambling problem, said he faces the biggest challenge of his career. Newcastle faced Crystal Palace at home on Saturday. Also in this, Fajoli, in his confession, said, according to social media, quote, "It was Tonali who suggested I bet on an illegal site. Many do it in the under-21s squad. I bet on everything, including Toro Milan, but never on Juve. I asked for loans from Gatti and Dragusin. I will repay them all. Desperate situation due to debt. I made a mistake against Sassuolo and burst into tears on the bench," end quote. So Fajoli, at the same time, has basically, and you phrased it this way, Nick, Fajoli has exposed the U21 squad as apparently a bunch of folks who bet as a part of his confession. Tonali and Fajoli should be in serious trouble. Newcastle claims to be shocked and surprised. And as Ricky asked us, so is that why they sold him to Newcastle? Basically, sitting there and getting rid of the evidence in this entire case. It's like, okay, so if we sit there and it's like, all right, so-and-so is doing this, this would be the way to get rid of the evidence. Like I said, we have no proof of this, but there is a certain amount of 1 + 1 = 2 here. Ricky's asking, so is that why they sold him to Newcastle? Before we dive into the specifics, your 30,000-foot view of what's been going on the last 24 hours.
Oh, man, where to begin?
The beginning. We got time. We got plenty of time.
All right. So let's start with this is really bad.
Yeah.
And this is not just really bad for Tonali and Fajoli and Zaniolo and by exposing the U21s.
Yeah.
Very few things happen with zero effect. There's almost always a knock-on effect. And anytime you do any sort of risk-based analysis, you should always consider the knock-on effect. And in this case, the knock-on effect is that if U21s are exposed and they are, and keep in mind that Italy is different than England. You don't have a lot of 18 and 19-year-olds who are playing first team minutes in Champions League, challenging for league titles. Most of your 18, 19, 20-year-olds are in Serie B trying to work their way up to their parent club or work to get that big transfer to start getting that sort of big time, big spotlight action.
Yeah.
That is really where you prepare yourself for things like the Euros, the World Cup, so on. You were talking about a national team that has not qualified for a World Cup in the past 2 cycles. It's starting to look like qualifying for the Euros is going to be questionable. If the U21s are exposed and they miss 6 months to a year, the amount of progress they can make has now just been severely stunted. And that should not just be dismissed. This isn't just about Tonali and the $70 million that Newcastle paid for his services. This is not just about Fagioli and how he's now going to be a man without a country. He has no safe harbor now. He has no friends in Calcio. He is not going to be trusted by anyone in Calcio. He is almost certainly never going to get a national team call up again, I would imagine. And, you know, I have no problems with somebody doing the right thing, right? If he comes out and says, hey, look, yep, I have massive gambling issues. You know, I have major issues I got to work through. No problems, man. Good for you. But to try to shave 6 months off of your sentence, you throw everyone under the bus. Good luck to you. The people that, another major concern is in Italy. I get here in the United States that the mafia is a joke, right? It's, you know, it's romanticized through The Godfather. It's sort of held under a more realistic light with The Sopranos. And now it's LOL, you know, people start playing that, you know, whenever you start hearing about the mafia or whatever. But over there, it's very serious. And if Fagioli is squealing like this in court and is openly talking about people threatening to break his legs, he's looking for protection. I mean, he's looking for people who are going to guarantee his physical well-being. That's not good luck to him. I mean, really, the mafia in Italy is no joke. It is not a punchline. It is not something that you really discuss anywhere. Not too long ago, Sicily had a literal civil war with pro-mafia and anti-mafia people, and you had 2 judges get killed by assassination because of the mafia. You had somebody who got in trouble with the mob, and their kid was boiled in acid. I mean, it's not, you know, this, people go missing still with regularity because of, you know, they get tied into the mafia, get a hold of, you know, serious debts, refuse to pay, or threaten to narc, and they're out. You know, it's, if this is being exposed now that there's, you know, gambling, you know, they're gambling on illegal sites, that's somebody's paycheck. Mm-hmm. That's somebody's tribute to the top. There's going to be someone who's not going to be happy that site has been exposed. So Fagioli, it just take a step back from the soccer side.
Yeah.
This is very, very, very bad news for Fagioli. As far as the soccer side of the business goes, I speculated 3 days ago that it was starting to look like Milan had some sort of information about what was happening with Tonali, and that led them to hit the emergency eject button to get rid of Tonali before this blew up in their faces. Mm-hmm. Legally, the legal system in Italy is like a sewing circle. Everybody talks to everybody. There's gossip. You know, there's always somebody chatting in a back alley somewhere. Somehow Milan found out, because previously, like as like last season, Milan had said Tonali was not for sale. Like he was the cornerstone of the rebuild. Tonali's not for sale. He's Milanisti through and through. He's going to be a Rossonero for life, and they would not entertain any offers for him. And then out of nowhere, here comes this bid from Newcastle, 70 mil, and Tonali's out the door when he's on duty with the national team. To go from he's not for sale for any price to now 70 million, yep, done, out the door. Thanks, bye.
Initially we thought it might have something to do with paying down some kind of debt with the club in and of itself.
Right. And what we were told was that the new process for Milan was going to be very much a money ball approach in the transfer window.
Yeah.
Which was players who are below a certain age. So like, 20, like players who are like 23, 23 to 25 tops.
Yeah.
Players who you can build up and sell at a tremendous profit. And that would be how Milan would be fiscally sustainable, because as we've all seen, the only clubs that seem to ever run into financial fair play issues are Italian clubs. It's crazy how that works. Don't know really how no other team in the world has these issues. But just Italy apparently. And so whenever Tonali was sold and they bring in Pulisic, it's like, we're not going to make a dime off Christian Pulisic. Like, even if he plays really well for like the next 2 to 3 years, his next big contract is coming from an MLS club. Like, he's not, like, we're not going to sell him to Arsenal. We're not going to sell him to Man United. We're not selling him to, PSG for 60 million. That's not happening. So that's why there was so much venom and angst directed toward Furlani, Cardinale, and that entire leadership team. And after they threw Maldini out the door unceremoniously as well, it is very hard not to put the pieces of that particular puzzle together now, seeing what we've seen now, knowing what we know now. And that is that Milan somehow found out that the gambling issue was radioactive, that it was spreading like crazy, and Milan had to insulate themselves quickly, and they were going to have to make a choice that Juve either couldn't make or didn't want to make, which was get that person out of the door of the office immediately. And you sold one of your most, certainly in Italy, your most popular player. I don't know how this doesn't come back on Milan. Darren Eales is a lawyer. Mm-hmm. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
Friendly guy at tailgates, friendly guy at, friendly guy, when it comes to shaking hands and kissing babies, but that man is a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And I don't know any lawyer worth his or her salt that is not at their core a vicious, vicious human being when it comes time to be. If you don't think this is not coming back on Milan, you've lost your mind. So I'm going to be patiently waiting. I think Newcastle is probably waiting to hear what the punishment's going to be. If it is according to some reports, it is anywhere between 6 months if he cooperates to 3 years if he doesn't. Mm-hmm. If it's 3 years, Tonali's career is effectively over. You're talking about, and what I mean by effectively over, that doesn't mean he's not going to get a contract somewhere.
Yeah.
But it does mean that he's going to essentially be blackballed from the national team. The likelihood of him coming back to Serie A and be effective. If he does not cooperate, actually might not be so terrible. He could almost certainly end up back at Milan, I would imagine, or he could find some other club in Serie B to ply his trade. But he would not have to worry about, I believe, any of the physical issues that Fagioli's going to have to worry about. But if he cooperates and says, hey, look, here are the people I talked to. Here's when I got a hold of this. Here's how I got a hold of it. That is, it changes the conversation here. Four Cards asking, proof. The proof is that they are testifying in a court in Turin, probably as we speak. Fagioli in court is issued all of these statements about Tonali's the one who introduced him to the gambling site. Tonali's the one who essentially was pressuring people to get in on this, and that the U21s are involved, almost all of them, that Zaniolo was involved, that all these other people are involved, and that people are threatening to break his legs. I mean, Fagioli has said this in court under oath. I highly doubt that Fagioli would just walk into court and spew a bunch of nonsense, especially, and Four Card, Milan, I'll get into that in just a moment. I don't think that Fagioli would go into court and just spout nonsense. Now, how does this come back on Milan? Now, if you have listened to this show for any period of time, you should know that I am through and through a Milan supporter.
Mm-hmm.
And I have said, as I said on Twitter, I refuse to call it X, it's Twitter. But I have zero proof at this moment showing that Milan essentially foisted Tonali on Newcastle. But the timeline does not look like it works out in Milan's favor. Milan had openly said repeatedly, because Tonali, when he first came in, had a very rough season with Milan. Mm-hmm. Milan said, we're not getting rid of him. He's with us. He's going to grow and develop. What we're seeing on the training ground and what we're seeing on, on the pitch on game day, two very different things. We know these two are going to match up very soon. Then last season, Tonali has his breakout year, does exceptionally well, defending, passionate defense. He looks like baby Gattuso out there with better passing. And then here come all the rumor mills that, England is, there are teams in England and there are teams in Spain that are looking for Tonali, and PSG may be looking for Tonali, and they're, trying to get this money and that money. And Milan came out and said he is absolutely not for sale at any price. And it's not like gambling. It's like, he is not for sale. Like, meaning like, we're not just putting this out there, as sort of a negotiation tactic, so you have to come in with a stupid high number. Milan at that time, if you know the timeline of Milan, we are not that far from what we call the banter era of Milan, where Milan spent 250 million euro on transfers. None of them are with the team because they were all bums, but Milan had been lacking an identity. And Tonali was the guy who was supposed to bring that back. And suddenly, to go from, hey, he's not for sale at any price, to Milan is selling Tonali to Newcastle for 70 million out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, out of nowhere. If you are familiar with 70 million for a card is a lot of money. And I'm with you. It is a lot of money, but Tonali checked every box of your player profile. Every single measurable statistic showed that he was not just mission critical to Milan, but he was absolutely necessary to keep to keep the fan base bought in. Coincidences do happen. I don't necessarily believe in coincidences. I just, especially when that amount of money's involved, I really don't believe in coincidences at 70.
Expensive coincidence.
Yeah, I don't buy coincidences in this situation. To me, a coincidence is, I misplaced my car keys and, they magically get found on my countertop. I overlooked them 55 times. Oh, what a coincidence. It's right in the one place I never put my key. That's just crazy.
Fancy meeting you here.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, we're not talking about water into wine or Coke into Pepsi. We're talking about, the timeline, and with knowledge of the Italian legal system, agents are constantly talking like it's a gossip circle. The lawyers are always gossiping like a sewing circle.
Yeah.
And there's always the issue of loyalties, calcio loyalties in the legal system, where you have, we can't go to this judge because this judge is notoriously pro Juventus, right? All of his social media posts are about Juve. He hates Inter. He hates Milan. We're going to have problems here. Or you may have a lawyer or a prosecutor or a judge who is deeply pro Milan. And, they may not publicly say, hey, Tonali's doing this or that. We're getting rumors of this. Or somebody in Guardia di Finanza may say, hey, this is happening. Again, I don't have evidence, but based on my knowledge of the system, based on previous statements from Milan, it doesn't smell right. And if Milan had nothing to do with it, Milan had no idea, and this is Coke into Pepsi, water into wine, find your lost car keys, good for them, good for us. We don't need any kind of heat. I don't believe that Milan would ship Tonali off like that without. Well, forecourt, I'm not the judge, man. That's Guardia di Finanza's job, my brother. That's not mine. All I'm saying is if it's starting to smell funny, and if Milan can dodge, that's great. But I don't think that there's really a way that Milan did not know. That somebody in that hierarchy found out and said, we got to move him, and we got to move him now because we're hearing about this gambling stuff. Even if they just caught wind of it, and they said, we got to move him, and whoosh, they move him, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just smells funny to me. It smells funny to me. And so innocent until proven guilty, all blah, 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 blah. That does not move across the barrier to the court of public opinion. And you're looking at a situation now where if he cooperates, he's out for a year. If he's out for a year, almost certainly Newcastle's going to try to do everything they can to recover some of that $70 million.
If not blow the whole deal up.
I don't think they're going to be able to blow the whole deal up, but I think they're going to at least look into it. And when they look into it, and when investigations come up, problems get found. It's and yeah, Jason Davies says it as well. Based on the videos of Tonali when he first got to Newcastle, you knew something was there, something was off, and not just a guy taken back by the north of England. It looked like a hostage video. Yeah. I mean, nothing about it looked right. Nothing about it felt right. There was not the conversation of, hey, I'm a big player and I'm going to a big club that's being backed by big money, and I'm going to be one of the centerpieces for this thing. Oh my God, this is amazing. No, there was none of that. Every media publication out there talked about was how Tonali looked like somebody was putting a gun to his head for the videos. I mean, blink twice.
We asked Eddie Howe
Yep.
at Summer Series about how Tonali was integrating. And Eddie Howe could not have been more positive about Tonali as a new teammate, learning Newcastle's way, being around team. I mean, yes, it was one of those things where you're the new kid at school. But we asked Eddie Howe about this, and Eddie Howe could not have been more positive about Sandro Tonali and him integrating into what they meaning Newcastle wanted him to do. But obviously, you look back on it to what Jason was saying, and you're going, yeah, there was definitely more at play than just leaving a club that your heart was at and being shipped off to England, like I said, which I thought initially was strictly a financial thing to work on your bottom line, considering FFP and keeping, everything in line to where you're making ends meet and you're not going to get any kind of repercussion. I strictly looked at it as okay, they've really got to get their zeros in line on their books, meaning the club, and they've got to get this done, not to the point that where we're talking about it today, 8 matches into a Premier League season, 2 months in, a handful of, 3 or 4 months into a transaction where you're sitting there and going, damn, there's a whole lot more to this, and it's got to do with what the player was up to at his old gig.
And for the record,
yeah.
I don't want any of this to be true. I don't want any of this to be true. Because let's go ahead and go worst case scenario, what I'm talking about here.
Sure.
And Milan is found to have known about the gambling.
Yeah.
Milan knows about the gambling. Milan foists Tonali on Newcastle.
They wanted to get rid of the evidence.
They want to get rid of the evidence, right? Mm-hmm. Let's in the land of make-believe.
Sure.
Let's say that happens. And every bit of it's true. Mm-hmm. The only thing I get out of that is being right, which is not remotely, it doesn't weigh up remotely with Milan going into the financial fair play dumpster because they would have to give 70 million back to Newcastle, which means a fire sale in January.
Yeah.
Right. So you're having to ship out Rafa Leao. You're having to sell Mikey Magnon,
who wants $8 million. Apparently, wants $8 million a year to stay.
Right. So you're probably gonna have to do that anyway. But if Milan does that in January, to have to pay back a 70 million euro debt, we're out of Champions League. We're out of top 4. We're going to be a mid-table team. And we are going to have to do bargain basement purchases to try to stay competitive. In no way does that benefit Milan. And because of the financial fair play issues, remember, whenever Bart, who's going to be on the show from what I understand later,
10:30, yeah.
Yeah, is always, trying to get me to change my mind on Christian Pulisic. I always say the same thing. In Italy, we cannot go year to year like you can in the Prem. If you're an Arsenal supporter, Chelsea supporter, Man U, whatever, where if a transfer doesn't work out and you blew 30 mil, oh, well, whatever, because your TV money is so stupid that you can make up for it. So no worries. In Italy, we have to do everything off of 3-year budget cycles because that's what financial fair play is based off of. 3-year budget cycle. Are you breaking even? And I would prefer us to be able to be in a situation where we can do Europe, where we can, even if it's the Europa, if it's Europa League or Champions League, I want that. But we can't do it if we're not in compliance with financial fair play. So I don't want any of this to be true. But I can't ignore the fact that Tonali, who was deemed an unsellable player, got sold in the dark of the night, like the Baltimore Colts moving to Indianapolis.
Yep.
Who, the videos of Tonali looking like he's, being held hostage. You have implication by Fagioli of the U21s, and which, if that's the case, there are a lot of teams in Italy now that are in deep, deep water because they're going to have U21 players who are the lifeblood, right? Those transfer fees are the lifeblood of those clubs to keep them from bankruptcy. The upheaval that you're going to get because you can't sell that player for 8, 10, 15 million euro to one of these bigger fish because that player is suspended because of gambling. You're talking about cataclysmic issues for Serie B teams. You're talking about 2026, you're going to have players who, aren't going to have, they're going to be a year delayed at minimum, not playing top flight Champions League ball. They're going to be delayed from playing top flight Serie A ball. They're going to be, in a situation where they are not prepared for the bright lights and dealing with the pressure of wearing a national team shirt that hasn't qualified in the past 2 cycles. This isn't just about LOL. This is so silly. This is Calciopoli 2.0.
Yeah.
This is something that sinks Serie B because you're talking about U21s going off the board. You have players like Fagioli is like in the world of Juve is like inconsequential. Okay, this kid's going to be gone for a year, whatever. He's out. All right, fine. We'll replace him with someone else. But the consequences for Zaniolo are huge. If Zaniolo is found to be, have bet on games, which so far I think most of his stuff so far has been blackjack and things of that sort, which, all right, whatever, get sorted and come back and get your money right. But it was Tonali was supposed to be the linchpin of the Italian national team going forward. And you're going to have him out for 6 months to a year. Okay, there go the Euros. All right, oops. I mean, we saw what happened yesterday with Italy and England.
Yep.
Right? I mean, they got ran. It's still not coming home. Sorry, England. It's still not coming home. It's still in Rome. Have fun with that. But England made Italy look like a Division III club yesterday. And it just got ran. And you don't have that leadership on the field that Tonali provided. And you tell me how that's improving. It's not. So I don't want any of this. I want to be so wrong on this. Oh my God, I want to be so wrong on this. But I'm not doing my job if I'm not talking about the implications if this goes sideways. And so far, it's done nothing but go sideways. It just has. In no way has this course corrected to something remotely survivable. Remotely. Because all Newcastle needs is one shred of evidence that someone in Milan's hierarchy knew. And this whole thing's done. That's it. And you're talking about a team that is backed with Saudi money. You don't think they can survive the billable hours? You don't think Darren Eales can sit there and be like, hey, honey, can you put the kids to bed tonight? I've got some contract stuff to look over. You don't think he's going to figure this out? Oh my God. It's terrible. It's a disaster. It is unbelievably horrible for Serie A. This is when the soap opera works against you. It's a double-edged sword. It's entertaining for the rest of the world. For those of us who are diehard Azzurri supporters, who are, diehard, Milan, Inter sort of clear on this at the moment, shockingly, and Juve, supporters, we are all sweating bullets because it's like, okay, well, who else is getting called into this? So we can say things like, there's no evidence, no case. That doesn't stop an investigation.
No, it's like, oh, there's no evidence, we have to stop.
Yeah, there's no investigation that stops because there's no evidence at the surface level. If anything, that dials the investigation up. Like, we see a lot of quote unquote coincidences. We need to do digging. There's something. But I really hope Card is right. I hope Card's 100% right, in that there's no evidence, no case, no nothing, and that Furlani, Cardinal, and the rest of the Milan team are just, taking their vitamins, saying their prayers, and going to mass. I mean,
Fagioli recently revealed that he was mired in a debt of €3 million when Tonali first introduced him to illegal gambling, report La Repubblica. Fagioli even borrowed money from 2 teammates on the excuse of buying a watch. Fabrizio Corona has revealed that Stefan Al-Sharawi, Federico Gatti, and Nicolo Casale are also involved in the scandal. Tonali betting on Milan means he's at risk of picking up the bigger band than Fagioli, according to Sky Italia. From our friend at Get Football News Italy. Once again, it was Corona who revealed the names during a chat with Stricia, and it was posted by Daniela Mari. Nikola Zaleski was also previously revealed to be involved in the case. Rumors suggest that he had bet on Roma matches, but the investigations haven't yet begun on the Polish star, and his entourage are considering legal action. So you could be adding Al-Sharawi from Roma, Gatti from Juve, Casale from Lazio, Zaleski from Roma. Those would be the next ones on the list.
Yep.
Happy Wednesday.
Yeah. And if they are all, if all of these guys from different teams are communicating about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like if so if Gatti is is Gatti calling up El Shawari? If El Shawari calling up Tonali, is Tonali, who is the orchestrator? Who's connecting the players from different teams? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the question.
And Corona also allegedly, to Valerio Staffelli, Corona also showed a video in which you can hear the players talking about the bets while dribbling. That's from Daniela Mari on the 280 character app.
And see, I mean, this is bad. I mean, I'm with you. Card, I really do. I hope Milan was just cheap. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I really hope Milan was just like, yeah, that's 70 mil. Let's just do this. I'm really hoping that like Tonali popped off at Jerry and said, you freaking clown. I can't believe you shipped off Maldini. Like, how dare you? Yeah. Your mother smells of elderberries.
Yes.
Your father's a hamster. Whatever. Something to make them go, okay, look, it's time to sell this kid. Just get him out of here. He's a pain in my ass. Whatever it is. Anything other than this.
Yeah.
Please.
Bam to the point. Bam would love to see the WhatsApp chat with all these guys.
I want to know who orchestrated the WhatsApp. I want to know who orchestrated this. Somebody's reaching across party lines to set this up. Was it discovered did they do it on the national team? When certain players are with the national team and they go back to their respective clubs and then they disseminate the information. If so, did Mancini know?
Yeah.
If Mancini knew, that's going to be problematic. Because Mancini shockingly left the Azzurri as well, right?
Yeah.
And also in the dead of night. Oh, wait, nope, got the Saudi money. I'm out. Yeah. I have no trust in I'm not trusted by the people of the FIGC. I know we're in the middle of Euro qualification, and I'm out of here.
Yeah, and I'm gone. I'll see you later.
I mean, hey, look, if I'm Newcastle, I'm calling my buddies in Saudi Arabia and saying, hey, look, get Mancini on the line.
It's like, bruh.
Who knew what and when?
Yes.
Roberto, talk to us. Who knew what and when? You're not going back. You know you're not. The money's too good. Talk to us.
Yeah. So you got nothing to hang on to anymore. It's like you're free from there.
Yep.
We need to know what you know and when you knew it.
That's right. Look, this has the potential to get really stupid. It has the potential to go away, like someone blowing out a match, but it also has potential to get really, really dumb. But I want to know, like, is it when Tonali goes to the national team?
Yeah.
Right. So Tonali's at the national team, and let's pretend for a moment that Fagioli is 100% right that Tonali was the ringleader. Yeah. Okay. So Tonali goes to the national team.
This is a scenario that does not have basis in fact. This is just Nick positing.
This is complete speculation. This is what we call workshopping. Okay. So theoretically, if Tonali goes to the national team and what Fagioli said is true, that would be the only place where you would be able to have enough of the Italian contingents in the room from different teams at one time to be able to state, to break down how the gambling operation would work. You go on this website, you place bets. I'm cleaning house on this. Guys, come on, man. Let's do this.
But then how did the U21s get involved?
The U21 also through the national team system.
Okay.
So you have the first team will play the younger teams at times.
Okay. So they're hanging out on the same grounds. You're in the same hallways. You're in the lunchroom. Hey, that looks cool. How do I do that?
Yep. And so then you have the U21s who are getting involved now as well. So it seems the most likely conduit was the national team. It seems theoretically, purely speculative.
With the information we have on hand that we are not regarding as evidence, but information and pathways.
Right. And I really hope that there's like a giant, like black ink, with surrounding with all these threads around it. It says
feel like a friggin' flow chart.
Yeah. It says Pete Sylvia, like it's all, but it seems that would be the most opportune scenario to get players from Roma, Milan, and Lazio in one place, and Juventus in one place to be able to pass along this information. Yeah. If the U21s are compromised, then it would it all goes back to Coverciano, which is the official training ground of the Azzurri. So if it's Coverciano, it's bad news bears. So then again, did Mancini know? Did Mancini know? If he did know, then when?
Yes.
Did he know the sort of genesis or origins of the of this particular problem? Did he try to stop it? Did he participate? How far does this go? We need to follow the money.
Yeah. And Bam offering up the notion of could have happened by a U21 who spent some time in training camp with the seniors, went back to the U21 training camp, which lends itself back to Fagioli.
So this is, like I said, man, it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
It just based on what has been happening so far. And there's been a ton of misinformation. Like one day Tonali had only done blackjack. Then the next day he had been betting on Milan matches, but he had been betting on Milan matches, but only for Milan to win or in games that he didn't play. It's, then Fagioli's saying that people are threatening to break his legs and he's having to bum money to make his minimal payments. Again, it's an illegal betting site.
Yeah.
Somebody's operating that illegal betting site.
And if you believe that you've got the if you're the one in control of the situation, that would be incorrect.
Right.
It is the gambling institution or the betting institution or the juice box purveyor that has the control over the situation. And speaking of Newcastle,
oh man,
yep. Speaking of Newcastle, see now Dylan has raced in to his studio setting, and I mentioned speaking of Newcastle.
Oh God,
Dylan, we've spent hour number one on what's going on with the FIGC and Tonali and Zaniolo and Fagioli, and Nick has said that it is basically it's worse than Calciopoli. It's Calciopoli 2.0. And specifically, you being the Newcastle supporter that you are, with Tonali now a part of this discussion and one of the linchpins of this discussion, what's been your early vibe on this?
So I need some background, because my early vibe this morning was getting a 4.5-year-old out the door.
There you go.
I was on the U.S. men's national team game last night for MLS, so I'm a little out of the loop.
Nick, lay it out.
All right, so essentially, Tonali has admitted in court that he bet on Milan games, Milan to win, and then also bet on games that he was not playing in as well. So I'm guessing that means that he bet that they would lose, but I
hope he didn't bet MLS games.
Yeah. But you're a true degenerate if you're doing that. But so also in this court, Fagioli for Juve has said that Tonali was essentially the ringleader on this, who pushed the illegal gambling site to all these guys. That the U21s, it's widespread and rampant in the U21s for the Azzurri, and this is also starting to spread to Zaniolo. This is also El Shaarawy with Roma. And because there's gambling on games, not just blackjack or anything else, but actual calcio, you're looking at anywhere between a 1 to 3 year ban if this happens. So the question I put forward is, or the situation rather, speculation pure, there's no evidence of this. It just seems odd to me, and I'm a diehard Milanese, right? No, I'm all in. That it seems odd to me that a team that has openly said Tonali is not for sale at any price, he's one of us, he's centered to our rebuilding project, virtually overnight says he's going to Newcastle. If they didn't hear something, that there's too much, that Italy's too much of a sewing circle in the legal arena, that somebody didn't pass along to someone in the hierarchy, hey, you may need to know that Tonali's doing all this crazy ass gambling. And Milan goes, yeah, get him out of here. We can't have it. It's bad news. Get him out, get him out, get him out. It just seems to me that that's a little, I hope I'm wrong. But
wouldn't Newcastle then, on the other flip side, like you do all your footballing due diligence, right? Like, wouldn't you do
yes.
your due diligence on that side as well?
Mm-hmm.
You would hope.
Yeah.
You would hope that there would be due diligence on that. But if it's not, it depends. If there was not an active investigation up to that point, it wouldn't show up in your surface level due diligence. But it does make me wonder if Darren and the Newcastle brass don't try, if Tonali's going to be gone for a year or more, if they don't try to go back to and say, hey, who knew what and when, and we need to kind of get some of our money back.
We kind of need our money back. Our friends at the Guardian, under Italian Football Association and FIFA regs, admissions of that nature leave players facing suspensions of up to 3 years. Given that Tonali, who's understood to have received considerable support and sympathy from Howland, we talked about that in hour number one, that Tonali is cooperating with civil and football authorities and has explained he is seeking help for what his agent terms a gambling addiction. The former Italy U21 captain is likely to incur a shorter, potentially year-long ban. The agent for Tonali, Giuseppe Riso, said his client has a gambling problem and faces the biggest challenge of his career. Sandro is shocked. He knows he has made a mistake. I hope this experience will help save his life and also the life of others with the same addictions.
Well, I mean, I guess it's proof that we can have nice things at Newcastle. That's my hot take on this.
Newcastle declined to comment.
We get a great win against PSG. You know, we're flying high.
Yep.
Top of the table.
Yep. Newcastle declined to comment on an issue set to be addressed by Howe at the press conference on Friday, but they are expected to endorse the supportive stance articulated by Gabriele Gravina, the Italian FA president. And were Newcastle to fail to stand by Tonali, once again, this is The Guardian, they would be open to accusations of hypocrisy. The club has commercial partnerships with 3 online betting companies. Newcastle and Villa should stand in solidarity with their players and review their relationship with gambling firms. Remember, the Premier League has banned advertising betting companies on the front of shirts from the end of 25-26, but the advertising will still be allowed inside stadia. So, but yeah, Dylan, we spent the entire hour, the first hour of the show, breaking down this whole thing because of the impact of the knock-on effects. Who could have known what, where, and when, and where does this wander in and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, first question we wanted to ask you as you came sprinting in was the Newcastle question.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, right? Because he was the big signing, supposed to be the missing piece, that wasn't there, right? Like for this team, obviously too, with FIFA fair play and financial fair play involved, like you just can't go and buy $50 million players left and right. So yeah, it's not good. It's not good from a Newcastle perspective. I guess it's a wait and see, and how long would he be banned for, right?
Yep, that's what you're staring at.
Too, like I don't know what it's like in Italy, but I mean, and it's been a few years since I've been to England, but man, that's not the country you want to be in if you have a gambling problem, right? Like it is left, right, and center, man. Everywhere you go, there are opportunities to bet on football matches.
Nick.
Yeah, I mean, this is something where he's gonna, if he has a legitimate gambling issue, which if you put yourself in this much hot water, I'm going to say you probably do. Yeah, it's going to be a question of who, what is his support system going to be, regardless of where he lives, because England and Italy, there's a lot of opportunity. And so and now with the way that gambling is via, your mobile device, right? I mean, you can gamble from anywhere, anytime, 24/7, 365 on just about anything. I mean, you could probably gamble on snail races if you wanted to, but
don't encourage Nick.
But all I'm saying is he needs to have a support system around him. And I want to know where that support system is going to come from and who is it going to be, because that will be part of his sentencing. That he's going to have to not only say, hey, look, I'm going to, rehab or going wherever to get this sorted, but, addiction is in the brain, right? It is something, physiological in the brain that your reward center dials in on a particular stimulus that helps you, feel a certain way that not many other things can provide. And he is going to have to show the courts and show himself really that there's a better way to live. And I think he'll probably have a better opportunity at getting top flight mental health care probably in England than he would in Italy. Italy, he'll probably get more sympathy. But access to care is going to be very interesting if he stays in Italy the whole time.
Yep. Dylan, I wanted to discuss the new update involving Dylan Butler Estates, the new NYCFC stadium.
Yeah.
And as we whiplash into Major League Soccer here, it appears the NYCFC is taking a big step forward. Club's planning application has moved into the final stages of the application process. Stadium's part of the wider project. We mentioned how we think that 25,000 is still too small, 23 acres of formerly contaminated land at Willets Point. That's how Inside World Football is describing the surface. But having been through a consultancy and review process with local stakeholders and residents, the project has now entered the Uniform Land Use Review Procedure approval process, which is designed to take no longer than 7 months. They call it a ULURP, which is that just sounds like something that you don't need to do with lunch. Assuming no problem, $780 million project could be completed in time for the club to play for the 27 season. You end up with a quote from Eric Adams, but it appears now that it is now land use review for Dylan Butler Estates and the new stadium for NYCFC. You're getting closer.
Yeah, it's funny too, right? Like how it only in these like stadium builds do you get like fans and like, you know, soccer journos like us, you know, where we get to know all the, you know, we have to learn all the aspects of big city construction projects, right? Like it's all these, all of these like things that you have to tick off the boxes, right? Like I had a tree guy come. I had 3 different guys come. They gave me estimates. I picked the one that I wanted. We set up a time. They came. They did the work. They cleaned it up. They were out. It was pretty quick. I didn't need an ULURP as part of the process, but slightly less land that we're dealing with here.
You didn't need a land use review process to go with the tree guy. So, I mean, obviously this looks like it's getting closer and closer, and obviously we tip our hat and go Mazel Tov as we hit the next stage of this.
And you know what I think too is going to happen likely, and it happened with that fantastic airport known as LaGuardia. The construction company, I forgot the name of it, but they were the one that was selected was given, you know, like they said, listen, if you finish ahead of time, you know, here's like a whatever $2 or $3 million bonus for you guys, right? Like just the incentive to, you know, get it done right, but obviously get it done ahead of schedule. I would you know, wager is not the right word, I think right now, right? But I would guess that there's another likely incentive for that, with the hopes of getting it ready before the World Cup in 26, and now you could have that as like a training facility, right, for the teams that are in the New York metro area.
Yep. Skanska was a part of the Terminal B redevelopment, and the Walsh Group was a part of the design build joint venture redeveloping LaGuardia area.
It looks amazing. Right? I don't know if you, I mean, I don't recommend going through LaGuardia.
I don't recommend going to LaGuardia, but okay.
If you have to, it's a better experience now.
All right. So
are they actually done with the construction outside now?
At LaGuardia?
Yeah.
Good question. I want to say mostly done. I think there still might be some. I think it's mostly done. I think what you learn in New York City construction projects is it's never really done.
No,
it's never really. No, those contracts are too sweet, baby.
much like DOT projects in major market areas. It's like oh yeah, the road looks no. It's like the scene in Sleepless in Seattle where the woman is having her the inside of her home remodeled, and Tom Hanks and Rob Reiner are inside the kitchen, and they're trying to sit there and say, no, you know, there's some other things that we got to do. It's going to take us an extra, 3 weeks, 3 months to get things done. Literally, that's the conversation that I envision that they're having in situations like this. You mentioned national team. Bart Keeler's going to come on after you. We're going to go for it and get Bart's perspective of this. Other than nobody getting hurt and probably folks being worried about Ghana for 26, what are some of your takeaways?
Yeah, look, you know, God bless U.S. men's national team Twitter, because it is all either doom and gloom and get Berhalter out and this is terrible to, wow, we're going to win the World Cup now. You know, here we go. This is proof positive. Like, the truth is in the middle, right? It wasn't a vintage Ghanaian squad, right? And it looked pretty clear at some aspects there that they were ready to go home, right? Like they were done with this North American tour of theirs. But I will say this: I think the biggest positives, like your big three, all played really well, right? In like a 45-minute window, right? Of Pulisic, Reina, and Balogun, right? They played really well. Sergino Dest was terrific, right? Weah was really good. So like that's, you could almost say your big five, right? Like those guys are not, like they're going to be in the lineup. So, but I think the biggest takeaway is just Gio, right? Like getting him on the score sheet, getting him playing. The smile on his face was great. That was so nice to see, considering everything that this kid, and he still is a kid, has gone through, whether it's been the injuries or the whole, you know, Berhalter gate, Reina gate, whatever. To be able to put that behind him and play his football and to be happy doing so, I think that was great. Like that was the best thing that you can, I think, take away from that match. And now you just hope that he goes back to his club and he gets an opportunity now that he's healthy to get some valuable minutes for Dortmund. Nick,
go for it.
No, I got nothing for the U.S. men's national team. I don't watch them. I'm sorry. It's nothing against the players. It's not. But you know, how expensive is it to go to these U.S. men's national team friendlies?
Woo. Yeah, that's another for sure. And the folks in Nashville clearly were not having it.
No.
And I think it's great that the fans have drawn a line in the sand and said, look, we're not paying this kind of stupid money
for a game in Nashville against Ghana.
Right. And it's just stupid to me. Bring it down, make it affordable, man.
My going back obviously a few years, I think it was after they made the 90 World Cup. I think it was 90. I think it was 91 actually. There was I forgot whatever stupid tour they called it, right? But I was living in Queens. I was like a young high school student, I think then. 91, I was a junior, so like maybe 16 or so. My first U.S. men's national team match I went to was in Foxborough. It was USA Ireland. I took a bus, like an Irish bar bus.
Wow.
You know, it was a back and forth thing, but I remember it. You know, like it might have been $50, like for your ticket and for the bus. And not that I was having it, but you know, there were obviously everyone else in the bus were you know, unlimited drinks kind of a thing. And then Nick, you'll like this. So that was my first one. My second U.S. men's national team match, they played Juventus in New Haven at the Yale Bowl. So I got to see that match. That wasn't as exciting. That was like I think it was like a 0-0 in the heat. But you're right. Like these were opportunities as a young impressionable kid I was able to go to, and it was easy, right? Like it wasn't super expensive, certainly, to go to these matches. And it still is in my memory bank. Like you know, now, like you said, it's a money grab, unfortunately.
Yep. Newcastle has released a statement saying that they can confirm Tonali is subject to an FIGC investigation in relation to illegal betting activity. Quoting, Sandro's fully engaging with the investigation, will continue to cooperate with all relevant authorities. He and his family will continue to receive the club's full support. And then they say, yeah, we can't comment any further. So Newcastle has come out with their statement, and we'll continue talking about it from there. How crazy do you think decision day is going to be?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty crazy, right? Like you wished everything was on the line, like Supporters Shield was part of that too. That was obviously wrapped up. But there's enough teams. Like, I think with the playoff format the way it is now, like it's not just making the playoffs, right? You want to be a top 4 to get the home field. That's important. There's a golden boot race as well. That's right there. Like, Bouanga is in the lead, but I tell you, with the assists that Lucho has, if he can get equal with Bouanga on goals, he's going to get it because he's got double-digit assists. So that's the tiebreaker in the Golden Boot. Yeah, no, I think it's gonna be great. I think it's gonna be wild. 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock. It's I'm on. I've got a high school football game at 2. So I'll be home in plenty of time. It'll be a long day in the desk.
Yeah. All right. So what do you think? What would be the most surprising thing that you think will happen in your list of predictions? Give me something off the wall that could feasibly happen in your ideas for decision day. Could somebody collapse? Could a team collapse and just completely plummet from where they currently are?
I almost have to say, like, Chicago makes the playoffs. Like, I still don't kind of believe that they're in this position to do so. Like, I know they are. I know they physically are. I can see the table, but I'm not believing what I'm seeing. Right? Like, so I feel like, if they don't have their collapse that we're used to kind of seeing, that'll be a surprise to see them in the postseason. I would, at this point, I'd be surprised not to see Charlotte there.
Yeah,
I think if they collapse, that would be wild. But
hey, you got a home and home with Messi and friends to close out your season, and Messi has said that he is going to play with his friends at least once before the season is over.
Well, it ain't happening tonight. We saw it yesterday, so
that is true, considering you played yesterday. So I was like, you're going to play once before the season's over. So that's decision day then, by process of elimination, if you're flying back,
unless it's in China.
That's true. That is absolutely true. If they schedule something about what's going on, So Charlotte's at 39. Chicago and New York have identical records, but Chicago is 7 goals behind in goal difference. DC, nothing like being DC, where you're basically dormy. Your season's over after last weekend. Your manager jets to go back to England. He's like, "Nah, I'm out." And now you're just kind of sitting there. Everybody in DC is kind of like, yeah, okay. So what time is it? Yeah, so you get a good dinner or something. While everybody else is working around you. So does Charlotte get in? Or do the Fire get in? Does Charlotte win their last 2 over Miami to jump everybody?
Yeah, I think Charlotte gets in over Chicago.
Okay. So Charlotte over Chicago. So what are your broadcast plans? Varsity Media, OSDB, MLS Soccer. What's going on?
Yeah, it's I had a soccer match on Monday. That was fun to do. I got a lot of playoff games coming up, so I wanted to get a rep in before the playoffs. So
there you go.
Amityville. This is actually a really cool story. So it was Amityville against Hills West. Hills West started the season 1-5-1. Now this is a rematch of last year's county championship game, but both teams lost significant amount of players from those teams.
Okay,
including Amityville, which lost like the Long Island Player of the Year, who's at like NC State now.
The Horrors. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, so Hills West 1-5-1 to start the year. You have to be a 500 club to make the postseason.
Oh, wow.
So they go on a run of 4-1-1 to go into this game, which means it's their last game of the year. They have to win it. They cannot draw it. They cannot lose it.
Mm-hmm.
and they're on the road, right? So like, how do you manage that? Do you just push everything forward and like go for it? 6-3 game or something. Are you responsible defensively? Now they have some. I don't have it in front of me, but they had some. The coach kept some records since like 2003 or something. Their record when they score first, it was like some crazy number. So Hills West absorbs some pressure. Their best, they get a very dangerous free kick, and they get their best player, the best player in the league, on it. He goes bar down, scores it. And now in high school soccer, as you know, you've got unlimited subs, and until, at least in New York, until it's like inside of, I think, under 5 minutes left in the second half, the clock just continues, right?
Yep.
So we literally saw the same sub, like, Nick for John, John for Nick, Nick for John. That happens about 25 times. The same sub.
Situational substitutions.
And it was literally like, so then the one who came out just went right to the scorer's table, because then on the next ball out of bounds, he's coming back in.
Man.
So it was listen, it's within the rules. They managed it. But then Hills West won the game 1-0.
Oh.
They make the playoffs for the 21st consecutive season. So it was pretty wild. So I've got 3 American football games. Where am I Friday night? Smithtown West and Hills West Saturday. I got a big rivalry game, Farmingdale, Massapequa.
Okay. 2
undefeated teams as well. That's going to be fun, 2:00. And then 1:30 on Sunday, I have St. Anthony's and Holy Trinity. My daughter has a game at 10:45 on Sunday.
I thought you were going to say she's the starting quarterback for your 1:30 on Sunday.
No. Last my managerial debut did not go very well. Here's what happened. So you're supposed to play 5v5.
Yeah.
In these matches with a goalie.
Yeah.
We only had.
Yeah, because you had the one that wanted to go and play over at the swing set and wasn't really interested. And
yeah, she wasn't there.
Okay.
We only had 4 girls total.
Oh.
One girl did not want to play. God bless the mom. Like, she keeps trying. We're all encouraging her. Come on, Michaela. Come on out. Let's go. Let's play. It's going to be so much fun. She's dressed. She's ready to go. She doesn't want to play.
Well, look, Dylan, as Michaela's agent, I have to state that this can all be solved if you provide her with something a bit more substantial than orange slices and juice boxes. We have to have something more substantial, and Michaela will be happy to go in and be the proven talent.
We can work out a Happy Meal, perhaps. We could do that. There's a nice bakery also that just opened up. We can figure something out for Michaela.
Yes.
So at a few points of this first half, it was 1v1 with goalies. So basically, you throw the ball in to yourself. We called it at halftime. So.
Oh man. Well, may the sport be with you, sir.
Thank you.
And we will catch up with you again next Wednesday, and we'll talk playoffs because the regular season will be over, and then we'll see how much chaos we have. Dylan, my friend, thanks as always for hanging out with us and sprinting back home after dropping folks off for their day jobs.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Be good. Dylan_Butler. And time for the hot tag, which means that it's Bart Keeler coming in for the tail end of hour number 2, where we're discussing what is going on with the national team, the youth national team, reffing down here where apparently Joe Dickerson is in the middle for Atlanta and Cincinnati, as that has been released. Yeah, basically, yes. Yeah, that was the response, is the way it should have been. And
there are worse referees in MLS. I know that people get shocked to hear that, but there are worse referees than Joe Dickerson.
Oh, that's kind of cutting it close, though. But what I wanted to do to start this particular segment with you is, and I want to include Nick in this as well, obviously, the retirement of Michael Bradley. Retiring from play and he's hanging it up from Toronto, which has been a dumpster fire, and we know that that's insulting to dumpsters with what's been going on in Toronto FC. But if you could, sir, the legacy of Michael Bradley when it comes to American soccer, what do you think?
Well, let's start with the negative, because the unfortunate legacy that he has left is that he captained the team that did not qualify for the 2018 World Cup. And unfortunately, that is something that is going to shadow over Josie Altidore, and others on that team. That said, the reason it's a shadow is because they had an otherwise great career. And Michael Bradley he went to Europe at a time when we were it was not a thing for an American soccer player to go to Europe if you weren't already having a European passport. Obviously, he had the benefit of his father being an MLS coach. Let's not pretend like that wasn't a benefit, but he used that to his advantage and became a great defensive, holding, whatever type of midfielder you want to call that. He had a great career in Europe, but he came back to MLS because he was offered basically 6 times the amount of money he was going to make in Roma. And probably at that point, Roma was actually, the Italian league still had money, I guess. So his checks were clearing, but he came back home for a lot more money, and that's hard to argue with him. And I think a lot of people also detract him for that, because he did come back to MLS probably earlier than we would have liked him to.
Yeah.
But he was a guy who kind of set the standard of what a U.S. soccer player can do in Europe at a time when, that standard bearer was Trundolo, who was just available. That was his contribution, is he was a hard worker and available in Germany. And I think to a lot of ways, Michael Bradley helped show younger generations and younger players that you can go to Europe as a slightly more creative player as an American, still with the work rate, but a more attacking and creative mind, and be successful.
So, Nick, when I mention Michael Bradley, what comes to mind?
I mean, he will be remembered well in Verona. In Roma, he had his infamous Lex Luthor goal moment, which is still one of the greatest calls in Serie A history, in my opinion. Hearing a bunch of crazy Italians go, Lex Luthor, Lex Luthor, after he scored. Yeah, that's beautiful. But the World Cup miss, I think, is it's a stain on his legacy. Booing him was really fun. It was really enjoyable. But I will say that one thing that always shocked me was after after Trinidad, when Bradley would go anywhere and he and Altidore would just get booed out of the building.
Yeah.
The Toronto FC supporters would just dive online and be like, this guy's like your captain. Like, what in God's name is wrong with you? We would kill to have a guy like that on the Canadian national team. And, he's our captain. We love him and he'll have our support. And we're like, great, keep him. He's all yours. Yeah. And
well, remember, Nick, at that point, Canada, a World Cup for Canada was a pipe dream.
Yes. Agreed. Yeah. And so, Bradley, I think, is somebody who, Bart nailed it. He was someone who, when he went to Europe, it was, all right, this guy's different. He's not some kind of like suave superstar. He is a workman, but he's a blue collar worker who is just grinding away. He's not just available, which I think is the perfect analogy for Trundolo, but he's somebody who teams want and fan bases can get behind because of his work rate. And when he came back to MLS, I think there was sort of a collective of, oh, Jesus, again? Just like we had with Landon Donovan, when Donovan goes and comes back because he's homesick. Hey, look, man, nothing wrong with that. If you've never been legitimately homesick, don't talk to me about it because you don't understand. but it felt like a bit of deja vu again, where our best can't survive over in Europe because we're not mentally strong enough to do it. And so when you had that, he came back to MLS because he was not and again, this is just the label, okay, that he was not mentally strong enough to survive in Europe. He was getting paid a metric ton more cash to come here. That can't be shoved to the side, but people make their judgments no matter what. Not mentally strong enough to survive in Europe, not mentally strong enough to captain the team through to the World Cup. The comments afterwards where he did his, steady approach which is like, hey, yeah, we're not happy about this. We're disappointed and we are just going to work and get better. That's not the time for the baseball response. That was the time for unbridled fury.
Yeah.
And I think if he had done that post-game presser in Trinidad with tears in his eyes, snot bubbles, like the Tim Tebow, we are going to be better for this and we will slaughter anyone in our way. Had he cut a wrestling promo after that, I think his legacy would be viewed very differently, but it came across as indifferent. And when that happened, it was forever stained. And to that note though, it's time. It's time for him to go. Good for him. He had a great career going to coaching.
Absolutely.
Join the U.S. men's national team, coaching staff, and put yourself in line to be what should be a hell of a manager. But I've never had any kind of crazy love for Bradley. Good for him. He's a workman. Wish him the best, but I enjoyed booing the hell out of him. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, Nick, to your point, it's not so much that the biggest catastrophe was not qualifying, but it was the response from Bradley and others where it was just like, well, yeah, we didn't do it, and I guess we got to do better next time. It's like, there's not a next time.
Yes.
4 years of this, and I think that was the response. Like, and I know people heard that from Bruce Arena. Obviously, Bruce Arena as a coach is trying to save his job from not his job then, but his reputation.
Right.
But the thing is Bradley and all those guys were part of the entire campaign who, despite what I will say about Jurgen Klinsmann, and there are some people on U.S. Soccer Twitter who, after losing to Germany 3-1, think that the answer is bring back Jurgen Klinsmann. Never the answer. No. But, Klinsmann struggled to even get to the final round of qualifying. But Michael Bradley and others were still part of that. And so as much as we want to blame Klinsmann, these guys were also underperforming every step because, look, the reality is the U.S. had no right missing out on that World Cup, No. And this wasn't even, to the point like with Italy, right? Like, okay, you finish second in your group, you have to go to play. Like, those things are set up to cause a little bit of chaos. That's not how it should be in CONCACAF. Your top 6 made it, right? Or, your top 3 made it. You should not have been in that position where you didn't even qualify automatically. You didn't even make the play. Like, that should not have been a problem for you. There's no reason why for the U.S. in 2018 to have not been better than everyone but Mexico and maybe Costa Rica. And so, absolutely, Nick, they did not want to accept the fact that what happened was catastrophic. And they can reason it away like, oh, well, we just lost in Trinidad. What is that? And it's like, 1, we haven't done that in forever.
Yeah.
2, this loss is not just hey, we'll come back stronger next time. We're done. And again, it's really hard to divorce Michael Bradley, the captain of that team, from that failure, especially when you look in totality, a team that lost at home to Mexico for the first time in ages, a team that lost in Costa Rica 4-0, and then a team that, again, lost to Costa Rica at home with the new manager 2-0, and then went on the road and lost to Trinidad. You lost 4 times in that qualifying cycle. 2 at home. Actually, and so that it's failure. And it's the unfortunate reality is, though he played in multiple World Cups, that one we failed. And when you evaluate where CONCACAF is, I mean, look, sorry to bring this up again, but like Italy not making a World Cup,
Yeah.
right? Netherlands not it in Europe, it can happen.
It can.
There are a lot of great European teams. And in that 2018 World Cup, several teams didn't qualify, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we would consider to be stalwarts at the international level.
Yep.
That's not the way that it should have been for the U.S. in CONCACAF. This isn't a region that is flush with talent the way that others are, right? And it's not a region that sets up their qualification structure to leave things to chance. You got to play home and away against every single all 5 other teams in that hex, and you didn't get the job done. And again, we can look at coaching. We can look at Jurgen not being a good coach, Bruce not getting the job done. Michael Bradley and those guys were part of the whole process, and they didn't get the job done. And that's that. I don't want to continue to harp on that, but that's the reality. You know, he has a great, 2017 season, fantastic. And then, but you do that, and then in that same process, you somehow fail to qualify for a World Cup. Right,
and it hammers home that the idea that it was just weak mindset, right? That sort of the weak mindset, and whether it's true or not, it was the impression that people got that it's just
the field was a little wet, Nick. You know, it was they had to change location.
Right.
Trinidad had to play on it. They scored 2 freaking goals.
Right.
You know.
And
anyway,
but it's that mentality thing of if Bradley, and this is what's kind of crazy to look back. If Bradley had said, "I'm turning down the extra money. I'm staying in Europe. I want to get better," and if the U.S. still misses the World Cup, I'm of the opinion that people would say, "Okay, Pulisic and Bradley are the only ones who need to come back because they're the only ones who are pushing themselves to be better. Everyone else can go." But because Bradley had come back, because Bradley had left Europe, he had already been tagged with that idea of, well, you're just not mentally strong enough to handle it. And with the khaki response from a lot of the players across the board, and you see Pulisic looks like he's 2 steps short of like a nervous breakdown after missing the World Cup.
Yeah. Right.
And
right.
So many of the other guys are like, oh, well, yeah, you know, it really stinks. And I think that is where the rage never left after that. Like, that's when the booing, like, we're going to boo you out of the building henceforth, because had he cut the promo afterwards, if he and Josie had said, this will never, ever happen again on our watch, I guarantee it. And I'm going to take ownership because I'm the captain. It's on me. Yeah. It's my failure. The guys did well. I let us down. I'm going to get us back. We're going to go. And you will never see a U.S. men's national team be better than what we're going to be after this. This is Project World Cup from here on out. We're going to kick the crap out of anybody that gets in front of us going forward. If he had cut a promo like that, I don't think it's the same stain. But, you know, it's that generation is going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And
I will say, I think Bradley has dealt with it a little bit better than his counterpart at Toronto at that time, who seems to think that he's never done anything wrong on or off the soccer field. I think Bradley now does understand that they messed up. Yeah. But I'm with you. Like, in the moment, it still was just
in the moment.
And I think a great response.
No, I think in the moment he made what he thought was the mature, responsible decision, which was to be as the leader. I can't slam anybody. I can't bury the manager. I can't bury people who underperformed.
Right.
I have to be the lighthouse. So I think he tried to be the lighthouse in a scenario where he just didn't need to be the lighthouse. He needed to be the fireball. Yeah. And that's just not happening. But Italy is dealing with mentality now. That's what we're dealing with. We are from a mental standpoint. I don't think we're qualifying for the Euros, and I don't think we're qualifying for the next World Cup.
Well, that's a great point, though, Nick. Because sorry, John, we're derailing, but you know, you look at European.
When has this show ever been on the rails, Bart?
You look at European qualification, and I do not think for 1 second that Portugal is a vastly better team than Italy, right? Mm-hmm. But here they are, qualified already for a Euro. They have won one recently. I mean, obviously Italy did as well, but like, they kind of, to me, fit that mentality approach very well. Like you keep pointing, it's because they are dedicated, determined, and they understand the goal is to win.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is not play pretty soccer.
Nope.
They can play pretty soccer, but at the end of the day, the goal is to win. It's something that Gareth Southgate needs to figure out real quick, because England ain't qualified yet either. So,
well, yeah, but I'll tell you this: England beat the brakes off of us yesterday, and
yeah. Well,
does that say more about you, or does that say more about them?
they ain't qualified yet, so
they ain't qualified yet. But it's. I think that's where, looking forward, if there's any positive to be taken away from Bradley's career, is I think people can look and say, we need a different attitude publicly, not just privately, but a different attitude publicly going forward. And I think that's where Bradley can step really effectively into the next stage of his career by going into the U.S. men's national team pyramid and coaching these kids up, saying, look, man, you got to be on fire to get these. It's not all just about being cool as ice. Sometimes you got to turn the heat on, and I can tell you how to get there. Doing it in Europe, doing it here in MLS, doing it, for the national team, failing at the national team. I can show you what not to do as well as what to do. And to me, if a coach only tells you what to do because of their quote unquote success, there's already a red flag. I need somebody who's a leader who's going to say, hey, let me tell you where I failed as well, because I can help guide you through this minefield, because I'm it's like Virgil in the Inferno. I can show you what not to do. So, and it's, I think that's where he can really be that statesman for U.S. soccer. And which I'm hoping what Buffon does with the Italian national team, which is currently what he's doing. So take that statesman role, man, run with it.
All I'm going to say is, hey, San Marino scored. Anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
Yeah, that's Kevin Garnett. Anything is possible.
Exactly.
Anything's possible for a man who's one of the best talents of his generation, playing with a team of other great talents.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Kevin.
All the super teams. Other than nobody getting hurt and seeing Gio Reyna score, what happened last night for you at Geodis?
Well, there weren't a lot of people there. So that is concerning. U.S. Soccer does need to figure themselves out of that.
Well, it ain't a hard figure out. Lower the ticket prices and I mean, cities that they ain't been in before.
Well, right, because you saw what happened with East Hartford, though, and those ticket prices weren't drastic. They weren't cheaper than what happened in Nashville, but you're right. I mean, and you can say, oh, well, Germany's a big-time opponent. Ghana's a good opponent. Like, if you're a U.S. soccer fan, you're aware of who Ghana is. But anyway, that discussion probably could take a whole hour of this show, to be honest.
That sounds like a future episode of Soccer for USP.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably what it'll be. Because you don't see as problematic attendances with the U.S. women's team, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
One, they're good, but like they market themselves, they sell themselves. U.S. soccer has still not done a good job figuring out how to sell the U.S. men's national team. We do realize that they divorced from some, so that there's no more MLS quota, despite what some people on Twitter.
SUM, not SOME.
Some, yeah, Soccer United Marketing.
There we go. Yeah.
So they no longer work with them, which I think they're learning how hard it is to gain and garner attention for this sport in this country. But anyway, no, I think the most important thing was you looked able to create a lot of chances against not a great team by any stretch. I think that's the thing that surprised me most was Ghana did not defend, especially particularly well. But it did feel like against Uzbekistan and Oman, scoring was a struggle at points. Creating chances was a struggle at points. And Ghana is a better team than both of those, and you were able to create more chances, put the ball in the back of the net. you can talk about the fact that one was a penalty, one was an indirect free kick, but you still put the ball in the back of the net. You still created chances to put the ball inside the penalty area, which has been, again, something this team has struggled to do under Berhalter throughout his time. So that's a positive.
Okay. Next up will be activity in the Nations League.
Trinidad is confirmed.
Okay, so it is confirmed. Trinidad, November 16th at Q2. Place better be rocking, but we all know about Texas and weekends. So first leg of the quarterfinals on November 16th. Youth national team. Looking at that starting 11 last night for the YNT for their match, it included Caleb Wiley starting, which was
pretty stout 11. Let's be real honest. And then they brought subs off the bench, and John Tolkien, Jack McGlynn, Duncan McGuire, this U23. If they can keep that, again, the goal of these friendlies wasn't necessarily to win. We beat Mexico. They still can't beat us.
Right.
Put a beat down on Japan, and that was. We'll talk about that game in itself in a little bit. But the goal of these were just to get the group of U23s that you want to take to the Olympics next summer together. And this is a good foundation to start with. This was a good window for them, mostly because they got to train together as an actual U23 team with a U23 coach who seems like he actually knows what he's doing, which is a stark contrast to the last one. Again, Jason Kreis is not a good soccer coach anymore. Sorry, he just isn't. That is the most important thing, though, is you got all these guys together. But the results looked pretty darn good, too.
Here's your starting 11 for those that do not follow the YNT on the 280-character app. Christopher Brady from the Fire was in net. Caleb Wiley, Brian Reynolds wore the C, Johan Gomez, Paxton Aronson, Maximilian Dietz, Benjamin Kremoski, Aiden Morris, Obed Vargas, Indiana Vasilev, Jonathan Tompkinson. And then it was off the bench, Pulskamp, Nathan Harriel, Craig, John Tolkien got 20. Tanner Tessman came in the second half. Gianluca Busio came in, gave you 30. Jack McGlynn came in to give you 30. Gutierrez, McGuire, Kumungo came in and gave you 30. And Esmer Bayraktarovich came in and gave you 30. I mean, good God, man, in a 4-1 friendly.
And what I took from that is Japan was good. They possessed the ball well, they passed, but our counterattacking, our purposeful possession was amazing. I mean, you get 4 goals. That's great. And that, to me, is where the U.S. needs to, where we can be against teams at or above our level, where we don't always get the ball. And this is something Greg does have to adjust with. Is he likes to have the ball all the time. And you're going to be in a lot of situations where you don't. Also, last night, the U.S. was outpossessed and outpassed by Ghana, which was a weird stat to look at this morning when I was going through all that. You have to be intentional and direct with your possession. And when you are, we still have the athletes. This is the U.S. soccer. We're always going to have athletes. You're going to have the athletes who can really hurt defenses. And against Japan, you did. It was good build-up play, but it wasn't always there because Japan presses really high. But once we broke that first line of their press, we were off. And that was the most encouraging thing because we kind of saw us struggle with that against Uruguay in the U20 World Cup, where we did a really good job up until then, and we faced a really good team. And though we played well for the most part, their pressure got to us. We didn't see that against Japan last night, and that was a positive.
And do we not have a women's soccer national team roster drop today as well?
Today they will be dropping the roster for the friendlies against Colombia, which we still don't have a head coach. So I will hedge my bets and just say that, look, these friendlies are more about playing soccer. We'll get to see Linda Caicedo play for Colombia, which is always fun for me. But U.S. women roster drop today. They've got friendlies against Colombia on the 25th and 29th, I believe.
And have you done your research on Hickory FC and the NPSL, sir?
No, I haven't yet, but I did see that there's a Hickory FC now. And
they're playing at Lenore-Rhine.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, that field was built the year before I got there. It's the reason I went to Lenore-Rhine, because a couple of the schools I went to to look at, they were cow pastures. And I saw this multi-million-dollar facility with a multi-million-dollar track around it, and actual money poured into it by the guy who started gold toe socks. That sold me. So congrats. Yeah, I like the Moret Sports Athletic Complex getting a more permanent tenant as well.
All right. And so what's next for Soccer for USPOD? You're going to take the hour from the suggested topic from this morning?
We'll do that in the time period between friendlies and nothing. So we'll have, we had the women's friendlies in not this week, but next week. Yeah. So after that, we'll probably get into, talking about bigger topics. It's hard when you actually have games to talk about.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, John, I think for me, again, what we saw this window was we're creating more good soccer players. But shockingly, and this is where people on Twitter need to understand, shockingly, our good players still aren't better than the best players in the world. And we don't have those guys yet. And it's unfortunate, but it's a reality. And we're not at the levels of Germany, of Italy, of Netherlands, of England. We don't have those guys. Can we perform at that level some days? Yeah, we can. But we're still not there yet. But we're getting darn close. And that to me is a positive.
He is. And Bam wants to know the thoughts on the NWSL winners getting a cake tin. I think they've actually.
Listen, I've made better projects from Dollar Tree materials. Wow. They are getting a new one.
Yeah,
they are getting a new one. They just prioritized the NWSL Championship and MVP trophy, but that's embarrassing even for it's embarrassing because also the NWSL Championship trophy before this was pathetic. Like, let's be real honest. I don't know. WUSA had a better trophy, but that is, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Nick has probably had kids bring home art projects bigger and more grand.
Oh, I'm sure that the Duchess could do something now that would rival.
Yeah.
Look, the Duchess is stitching her own handbags right now. So
see, yeah, exactly. But hey, $15,000 for all the Wave players. That is nice. So maybe they probably care a little bit more about that than they do a cake tin, serving platter.
So there you go. Bart, as always, thank you, my friend. I know that next Wednesday we will be discussing a lot of reffing down here from Decision Day. So keep your head on a swivel for what's going on because Dickerson is in the middle for Atlanta and Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And we're looking for
Look, I'm just telling Atlanta fans right now.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared for disappointment. And I'm not saying we're going to lose. I'm just saying prepare yourself for disappointment. It's a lot easier when you go in that way because Cincinnati is still very good, even if they rest players. And there's really nothing to gain by us winning or losing. Be quiet. Like, that's the frustrating part, John. It's like, what's the worst that happens? We finish 7th as opposed to 6th.
Well, you figure
But
out.
hey, I've been told that we're somehow doing better, even though we didn't actually really increase our standing. But good for us.
Yeah, see, this is why Bart comes in. I let Bart get his shot in every single time he comes in. He gets his shot in.
I don't want to be negative. I just like to counterbalance all the positivity when there's nothing to
to get your shot in.
Yeah, just reality is better than positivity.
Shot. What's your mug today?
Drink coffee, do good.
There you go.
There you
It's
go.
a great tagline for your coffee sponsor.
Yes, our friends at Kickoff Coffee. So
they can sponsor me if they wanted to. Kickoff Coffee, if you want to sponsor me.
Yeah. See, we do the same kind of a thing. We'll talk to our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Bart, we'll see you next week, my friend.
Thank y'all.
All right. Bart. He's going to drink coffee and do good. All right. So, you know what we forgot to do, Nick?
Well, I can tell you what I forgot to do. I forgot to get my kids' cleats out the door, and it's smelling up the whole house.
Yeah.
It's when you have a 14-year-old who's playing football,
mm-hmm.
And they play in those cleats come rain, shine, what doesn't matter.
Whatnot.
And so all the whatnot. And so the foulness that it's like stank Chernobyl from those cleats. And I just don't know what to do, John.
It's And so here's what you can do when we read a promo at the end of the show. We go to our friends at Eliminize. See, Nick's very, very good at this. Nick's good at the transitional elements. As Bam lets us know that Roger Goodell got another 3-year extension from our friends at the NFL. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. It's Eliminize service. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. Created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pets, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use Eliminize service to eliminate bad odors, help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. The turnkey process makes it easy to work with said realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment, offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. Different than Febreze or other masking agents that we may have either under the sink or above us in the cupboard, because when you reach either under the sink or above you in the cupboard and you get that masking agent, and it's almost like odor's version of an indirect free kick. You just spray it in the air and it doesn't attack the problem. It just masks the odor. You can't put it directly on net. You've got to do something else. So, masking agents. Cleanliness is indirect free kick. You can thank me later. It's a proven scientific formula from our friends at Eliminize, using to destroy odors down to the molecule. Pricing easy, either by the cubic foot or parts per million, and come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you got any questions, frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go, it's the website, eliminize.com. But do us a favor, go /Atlanta so they know what part of the world that you are addressing them from, so they can help you with your issues. Full homework assignment, ELIMINIZE.com/Atlanta, eliminize.com/Atlanta to take care of the stank and do it in 24 hours or less. Eliminize.com, proud sponsors of everything SDH. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo, Nick, before we go. And thanks for hanging out for the entire show. This was pretty strong. Hanging out for the duration.
Do what I can, man.
Newcastle preparing a bid for Calvin Phillips. That's from the 4-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Bayern Munich spoken to Man City about Calvin Phillips, but Joao Palhinha remains Bayern's top target from Fulham. AC Milan interested in Harry Maguire.
Dear God, no. Dear God, no.
From the 3-letter paper, so anything is possible. But, 3-letter paper is saying AC Milan interested in Harry Maguire. I'm just going to say it right now. If that happened, he would get eaten up and spit out pretty quickly. That would not go well. I don't know what they're thinking, but I don't think it would go very well. Let's put it that way. Manchester United could bid for Mark Gahey in January from Crystal Palace. Manchester City's Julian Alvarez is already a target for Barcelona. No surprise. Barca sporting director Deco has contacted Frankie de Jong's agents to discuss renewing his contract. Deco says it will be difficult for Barcelona to add to the squad because of their financial position. Mundo Deportivo. Liverpool among the Premier League clubs interested in Jamal Musiala, whose contract at Bayern runs until 26. Liverpool sent scouts to watch Sporting's defender Gonçalo Inácio in Portugal's 5-0 win over Bosnia and Herzegovina. Probably didn't get a good sample size. Liverpool monitoring Schalke's 17-year-old German midfielder Asan Wadraogo. Thank you. Wadraogo. That's from Sky Germany. Victor Lindelof expects Manchester United to trigger a 1-year extension clause in his deal with 12 months left on his deal. Johnny Evans thought he would have to retire last season before returning to Manchester United in the summer. Spurs head of recruitment Paul Mitchell is the favorite to become sporting director at Manchester United, putting current football director John Murtaugh's job at risk. What you can watch today. What can you watch today? I think there's a lot that you can. Goal TV, and if you don't have Goal TV on your cable, you can get it at Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. Helps out the network, helps out the show, helps out everybody. You'll get addicted. Goal TV's got the Uruguayan Primera underway, Liverpool and Defensor Sporting as a part of their quadruple header. Matches at 1:34 and 7:15 involving Torque and Peñarol. ACC Extra's got men's soccer. Remember, Inter Miami and Charlotte FC is tonight, the makeup game from the Open Cup run. And so this is the beginning of the home and home. You can catch up with Willie P and Jess on WFNZ tonight, probably 7:30 pregame, 8 o'clock, 8:09 kick. A bunch of college men's action and soccer starting at 2. Then last kickoffs are at 10 o'clock on the West Coast. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13 matches in women's play from 2 to 10 o'clock. Flow FC has stuff at 2 and 7. Paramount Plus has the Brasileiro starting at 6 o'clock with Gremio and Atletico Paranaense, and they have 6 matches ending with a triple header at 8:30 that includes Bahia Internacional, Goiás, and Sao Paulo, and Vasco da Gama and Fortaleza. They also have the Argentine Primera doubleheader at 6 and 8, Platense, Estudiantes, Independiente, and Barracas Central. That is what's to view today. Bam, with your cricket update, Afghanistan 126 and 6 after 31 overs. They need 37 more runs from 112 entries. So they should get it. But, Nick, what'd you learn today?
I learned that gambling does not pay long term. So
gambling's bad.
Just stick to imaginary juice boxes, things that you don't have to answer for.
Yes.
So
exactly.
No one has ever threatened to break my legs over imaginary juice boxes.
No, except the imaginary cashier at the imaginary grocery store.
That's right.
And thank you for the education and giving everybody the lowdown of the framework about what's going on, because I wanted to take that time in hour number 1 and go in depth because there were a lot of moving parts, and I wanted to give it context, and I'm glad that you were able, A, to hang out for the entire show, but B, specifically because of the developing story with players and legal finger wagging and things like that, to bring in context to this whole thing. And I'm glad that you were able to do it this morning.
Glad to do it. Glad to be here as always.
Tomorrow it is normal as we get you ready for what's going on. Our USL guys are going to be here at 10 o'clock because it's the beginning of the playoffs in the USL Championship. USL show is going to be here. I know Kaylor Hodges will be. We'll see if it's Kaylor and John Morrissey or if it's just Kaylor. They're going to be with us on a weekly basis throughout the playoffs to break things down. And Nico Moreno joining us at 10:30 for the final half hour of the show. So first hour of the show, we'll figure out stuff to talk about. We always do. News is always breaking. So, Nick, send us home.
Until next time, everybody, if you have any issues at all with any sort of addiction at all, this is not a joke. The first thing to do is acknowledge it. And then the second thing is don't be afraid to ask for help. Make sure you ask for help before it gets way too out of control, because as you can see, we have people who are losing their careers or having their careers severely impaired because of the scourge of addiction. So if you're out there and you need help, reach out to people. Please, 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 please. There's no shame in that game. Make it happen. Until next time, everybody, mucha, mucha euro, y'all.
See you at 9:05 tomorrow morning.